And
I repositioned my screen. Hello, and welcome to Soft Left. My name is Sandra Battaglini, and Soft Left is a show where comedians hash out news and events as they unfold in a COVID new world from our base here in Toronto. What is Soft Left? It's the opposite of hard right. So you know what I mean? Just a little soft, not so hard, but not fucking right. Tonight, we're hosting a very special edition on this past week's unprecedented events that we're calling Rage, Riots, and Explosive Tweets. So sit back, take a soft left with us as we weave our way around news and events. This is a donor-supported show, so please follow the link at the bottom of the screen to donate to this broadcast. If you would like to be a sponsor of this show, please email softleft@gmail.com. We do reserve the end of the episode for a question period, like in the House of Commons, but less cuntified. So for our viewers out there, if you have any questions you would like to ask the panel, please get those ready. So let's meet our panelists. The man who has been quoted as saying, "I don't see the utility of fashion, but I can appreciate it," Monty Scott. Is Monty not here?
I'm here.
Oh my God! Every week,
I was in the green room.
Every week, there's something new, and now you got art behind you. I love it. It's fantastic.
Yeah, Kira's been slowly decorating this place behind my back.
Oh,
but
literally
behind my back, yeah. So I'm getting classier. As I told you, Sandra, I'm trying to class it up every episode.
Yeah, I'm waiting
Something
for a
new.
collar. I'm waiting for a collar on the shirt.
Yeah, I'll have to go through my courtroom clothing and find something.
Amazing. And now the man who is fashion himself, a silky dancer and a double jointed genius, it's Luzi.
Hey, Sarah. What's up?
Not too much. How about you, sweets?
Oh, it was nice to see you this afternoon. We had a little sunshine together, huh?
It was like I've been praying this for 3 months. So yeah, it was so beautiful.
Love it. We're both looking forward to tonight's show so much. So thanks again for having me.
Oh my God, my pleasure. The woman whose last name, as we discovered in a previous episode, is an ancient word for clogs, but in contemporary Italy means loose woman. It's Carol Zoccoli.
loose woman.
We went through the etymology of Zoccoli with Phil and Tony, his partner, and he's a linguist, so we rocked it out.
Yeah, I know.
How you doing, girl?
No, man, I'm going. Everything is too weird.
I know.
So weird.
I know, man. And we're lucky we have this hour that we can vent it out. So yeah, it's amazing. Next up, the woman who likes to layer her arguments like she layers her lasagna. It's Candice Gregoris.
Hello, Sandra. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I am gonna second Carol. It's been a lot.
Yeah. Too much.
A lot. Well, you know what though? But here's the opportunity. Here's the opportunity. Here's where we can move more to the soft left.
And viewers, that's what I mean by layering. You know what I mean? Candice just added a layer, and you're right. We can move to the soft left. Absolutely. And finally, our guest panelist tonight, action figure enthusiast and reenactment specialist, it is Gavin Stevens.
Yes, how are you?
Great, how are you?
I am what'd you say it was?
An action figure enthusiast.
But reenactment. Yeah, I love reenactments.
Yeah, I've witnessed them on stage many times.
Yeah, they're awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Oh my God, thanks so much for coming to the show. You're the first guest on our show, and we're really pumped to have you here.
I'm honored. This is awesome.
I'm honored. So we're just going to start off tonight. It has been a horrendous week, like I said, of rage, riots, and explosive tweets. For me, this week marked the beginning of the Civil War that many political experts, sages, oracles, and psychics, yes, psychics, I know quite a few, have predicted for a long time. I went to this Pachamama ceremony. It was like a Mother Earth ceremony with a bunch of women on the full moon. I know, what are you going to do? And there was a psychic there, and she said that the Civil War was going to break out now. So, I've fantasized about this for a long time. Ever since I studied the French Revolution, I was like, yeah, man, fuck it. Let's burn down the power. Let's cut off the heads of the wicked. But what I didn't fantasize about was about how I feel. This is really hard. It's been inspiring to see people come together in defiance and protest, but it is hard because we're being faced with the ugliest parts of our species, that of hate, brutality, police violence against Black and brown bodies. This week we begin inside the explosive mouth of Donald Trump. He said in a tweet, when the looting starts, the shooting starts. Sounds like the rhyme of a warmongering 5-year-old, but alas, it's the words of Law and Order president and direct descendant of the Order of the Ku Klux Klan. Then another explosive tweet by his daughter-in-law, Lara Trump. I mean, who the fuck is she? I never heard of her. She wrote a tweet that said, looting is not protesting. Burning down local homes and businesses is not protesting. How sad that the memory of George Floyd has been lost in all of this. Like as if she has a right to talk about George Floyd. But my favorite response to her was on Twitter was by @Hoodlum, who said, then why is your family looting America? Fuck yeah. The looting starts, shooting starts tweet was on the heels of Trump threatening to invoke the Insurrections Act, which is a centuries-old law that allows the president the authority to send the U.S. military into U.S. cities and towns to suppress civil disorder, insurrection, and rebellion. And there was so much outrage of this because it is one of the most extraordinary uses of power for a president and one that has been rarely used. The law specifically states, whenever the president considers that unlawful obstructions, combinations, or assemblages of rebellion against authority of the United States makes it impracticable to enforce the law in any state or territory, the president may call in the federal service, the militia of any state, and use the military to enforce the laws or suppress the rebellion. This act was used by Eisenhower in 1957 to escort 9 Black students into the Little Rock Central High School after the governor used the Arkansas National Guard to prevent them from entering. It was used again by Kennedy in 1962 and 3 to enforce civil rights, and then by Lyndon Johnson after protests broke out when Martin Luther King was assassinated. Then George H.W. Bush used it after the verdict came out in the Rodney King trial. This act evolved out of a series of other acts with its roots in British law, and specifically the Riot Act. So in the early days when colonists rioted, which they did a lot, law enforcement would read them the Riot Act, which is where the saying comes from. Then in 1792, when the country was engaged in wars with indigenous people, George Washington signed the Militia Act, or Calling Forth Act. That law stated that in cases of insurrection, the president could command a state militia, because the National Guard didn't exist, to act if a state requested it, but only if a federal judge could make the argument that the resistance was too powerful to be suppressed by the ordinary course of judicial proceedings. Then the Calling Forth Act was used by George Washington to quash the Whiskey Rebellion, which was farmers in West Pennsylvania protesting against a new federal tax. After that, Congress was like, yo, take it easy, too much due process over here, and changed the law by removing the requirement of a federal judge to request intervention. And that brings us to the Insurrections Act. The interesting thing about this act, though, is that it provides a major exception to the Posse Comitatus Act of 1878. This act came about because former Confederate leaders who had returned to power devised this act to prevent federal courts from using military forces to enforce Reconstruction-era laws that aim to protect recently emancipated African Americans. So while Posse Comitatus was meant to curb federal powers, it is more a testament to Jim Crow than a barrier to the use of the Insurrection Act. So Trump is facing all sorts of outrage on this from the inside and out. Former head of CIA said on Bill Maher that the armed forces would refuse to act if Trump invoked this order. An active duty Air Force officer under anonymity said that a decision like this wouldn't be wise. These protests aren't combat and shouldn't be treated as such. His own Defense Secretary, Mark Esper, who is also deeply opposed, and he said that if Trump were to succeed in politicizing the military, it would have potentially devastating consequences for democracy, i.e. inching the United States closer towards a totalitarian state, which the White House was angered and said that he was out of line. And guys, this is all in the face of an America that has far less crime than it ever has. And according to Lisa Van Dusen, who sees this declaration from Trump as foreboding. In her words, it's a terrible irony that as Americans have become more law-abiding, police forces are becoming more militarized. empowered, and feared. That irony coincides with unprecedented corruption, racism, and contempt for democracy emanating from the presidency itself isn't just sad. History tells us it's ominous. So, panel, what do you think? Will he eventually do this?
Do you want us to just jump in?
Yeah, jump in, man. Yeah.
All right. I don't know. It sounds, from what you read from the last quote, it sounds like that woman's, the way they frame it is like things are happening now, and this hasn't been over decades. This progression and the militarization of the police hasn't happened over decades. So I don't know. It's the way all of that, the framing of all of that, it makes it sound like they don't know their own country. They've been where they are forever. This isn't new. Every one of these war acts that you're talking about happened because of a black body. Every one of those was some black person, something happened, and then they invoked the Wars Act. So is it called the Wars Act?
Insurrections Act.
Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe I'm just cynical, and that's me, but this is not new for me with this country. This is where this country has been, America.
Yeah, and just from what they're saying, there's all these people that say, well, there's no way that the president can do this on his own, but really, when you look at the law, that act, it's if they were to deem that, this was the last resort, then they would do this. History shows us this all the time. That when the leaders act in this way, then eventually this is what it's leading to. It's leading to martial law, totalitarianism. It already is totalitarian as far as I can see.
I find it interesting the Americans take such umbrage to the idea that the army would be policing their own shores when it's you've already sent that army to every country on earth. You're literally the last people to have your army invade. You're the last people to be invaded by your army. And they're we can't have the army here. They're animals. I'm well, why do you send them everywhere?
Yeah.
It frightens them to think, not our own army. We wouldn't wish them on. You literally wish them on every other country in the world.
Yep.
Except you.
So yes, Monty. That and right. I almost think that the military has more discipline. This is not all cops are bad, right? But I have this sense that the military, there are at least some people in the military who have this sense of adhesion to the Constitution and their role in a functioning U.S. democracy, or at least, God, I hope so. But it may not be. But it's the militarized police who have even less discipline, less oversight, less kind of chain of command, who's where we're seeing what we've been seeing over the past, decades, forever.
Well, I think accountability is exactly what they're getting away from. The closer they get to a militarized state, the less accountability there needs to be, because you're basically saying more and more, I don't have to tell you what we're doing. I don't need to get the permission of the populace to do what we're doing. We're just going to do it.
Yeah.
And it isn't new, Gavin. You're right. This is old as time, old as that fucking country itself.
Well, do you mind if I jump in?
No, jump in.
I was just
free flow.
They set this country up for someone like Trump. I don't think it's a Trump thing. I think it's a neoliberalism problem. And now we have a president who is a con man. 100%. I don't think, Candice, you were talking about the Constitution. I really don't think it's going to apply. I really don't think
he's read it.
I don't. And
I was thinking about the courts, right? They just stacked the Supreme Court. So if they ever even went through some kind of sham legal process, I'm Jesus H. Christ.
Yeah, I don't think laws apply.
Yeah.
I just don't. I think they write it, they make their money, they create the laws, they do whatever they want.
They're in the wild. They are the wild
obviously is always skirting the law by some loophole. There's enough loopholes that he can find somebody who's he doesn't know what he's doing, but somebody knows, and he's yo, is there anywhere around this? And there usually seems to be.
I think it's been eroded over time, and I think Trump was an inevitability. It was just you're gonna get someone like that. And
it's
then
like Amazon. You're going to get a company like that because you've set up your economy in that way. You've set up your political body in a way that people are going to find enough loopholes to put the worst person in that place to do the job.
And to Gavin's point too, like absolutely, like I remember like from Reagan on, I just feel like it's been happening since then. It's like there was almost like a little bit of a peak Democratic left kind of president in Jimmy Carter. Then you had the revolution in Iran and gas prices. And then they swung the other way. There was the invention of the moral majority. And I really just think from Reagan on, it's been the center has slowly creeped to the right, and everything has slowly creeped to the right.
Okay.
Absolutely. And now,
Well, if you look at even Clinton supposedly being,
time to change the subject, think it over.
I know, Monty, you were saying one thing. I was like, what were you saying?
I was just saying,
Clinton.
Reagan is one thing, but Clinton, being considered a Democratic person, bolstered the police state by a lot by the privatizing prisons, and created basically let all these companies merge. So there's only 3 different media companies. He paved the way for all of that, and he's supposed to be the liberal.
Fair enough.
So
that kind of ties into the topic I wanted to talk about. We've been talking a little bit about militarization and the police and also the United States. So bringing it to Canada, bringing it to Toronto, there's the death of Regis Korchinski-Paquette, which happened in Toronto. It was May 27. Her family had called to seek assistance to bring her to CAMH. The cops went in. The door was closed. They wouldn't let any other family members in. And she fell to her death from the balcony. And very quickly, stuff was going over police radios and police scanners saying, tell the media not to come. Because the family was like, you're not letting us in. We can hear our daughter like crying for help. And then just it's seemingly like the cops just immediately shutting things down and trying to not get the media to show up. And then it's only because of other like neighbors in the area, like tweeting at CP24, basically, that I feel like brought that media attention to what is going on. And so I guess I just kind of wanted to talk about homegrown racist police enforcement here. And also this idea of defunding, demilitarizing the police. And there's this movement called 8 Can't Wait. And it's a movement that was started in the United States. And it says there's very simple things that can immediately be done to reduce the harm done by police forces. So, not law abiding, but just harm reduction is banning chokeholds and strangleholds, requiring de-escalation. There is a duty to intervene. So meaning that officers can't just stand by and guard the guy murdering someone. Ban shooting at moving vehicles. Require warnings before shooting. Exhaust all alternatives before shooting. Establish use of force continuum. So I think that means that there's a hierarchy of different clearance levels before there are certain actions an officer can take. And require all force to be reported. And that's that 8 Can't Wait is part of the Campaign Zero that started out of the States. So I guess I just kind of wanted to turn that over to what do you think about this Canadian context of it and the police force in Toronto? Because, I mean, there's been several incidents with the police in Toronto murdering Black and brown people.
There's like a different, end to each of these arguments. Like, I've heard that the police didn't have anything to do with it, really. And is it a question more of them not taking the call seriously more quickly, rather than did the story itself found itself in a bad point of history, and it became a matter. I don't know if that's exactly the issue that was going on for them, if it is race related or if it's like other.
Well, I think it's the complete lack of disclosure and secrecy that's part of the problem. And even it's the inconsistency coming from Toronto Police Services, because normally in cases that go to Special Investigations Unit, the SIU, normally at that point they could say, it's gone to SIU, we can make no comment. Well, Chief of Police Mark Saunders has been making some comments, and SIU actually came out and said, we're requesting that the Chief of Police not speak right now till we've completed our investigation. But there's two things there. One, that's not following normal protocol. Like, why is the chief behaving differently? And it could be because of the moment in history. The other thing is this SIU unit, which is supposed to provide civilian oversight to the police, hasn't done a fucking thing. They've always sided with the goddamn police, right?
Yeah, and the police have a history of that. The Toronto police have a history of that secrecy. With what was the guy that was murdering people? And they were in the van, and he was up in the room.
No.
Yeah.
Brother?
Yeah, when Santa Claus.
Absolutely, it wasn't important to them either. That wasn't an important thing for them. Yeah.
Well, they didn't disclose anything to the community. There's a serial killer in the community, and they didn't let anyone know about it. I mean, they have a history of fucking things up and keeping things under wraps.
Yeah,
so, I mean,
you want a heads up on that one, Gavin. I agree.
Yeah, seriously. Right? And
one thing.
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. One thing I think for the Toronto police, for sure, my whole life being here, the police kill. If you call the police on a family member in some sort of mental distress, they kill those people a lot.
Yes.
It may be a function, and trying to give even the cops the benefit of the doubt, they don't seem to be well trained or appropriate to handle that kind of thing. Because cops are always like, listen, I'm the authority, you sit down. And when somebody's in mental distress, what's that?
Their budgets are insane. Like, they're like 30 to 60% of the city's budget. Like, they make so much money. They should have the training. Why?
Well, they might need other people to do that job. Somebody else should be doing it.
They're hiring people like crazy. There's no reason why there's no one there to train these people and how to deal with mentally ill people.
Well, it might be that they're just not suited for that. That type of position, police officer, is not suited to handle somebody who can't recognize they're the authority.
Yeah, but it's the mentality of policing that we're looking at, because we're looking at like these are police are used as a reaction or to deter, and they shouldn't be. They should be community oriented. They should be in the community dealing with people, not just there to, fuck everything up or make sure bad guys aren't doing stuff. So in a way, they should have that training. They should be a part of those places.
They should be able to handle that, but they don't seem to be able to.
And maybe
it's not part of the job.
And maybe it's like, I remember as a kid, like I grew up in Sudbury, like police, it was like a friend. I don't know. They just seemed more friendly. When I moved to Toronto, I've had a few instances, run-ins with the police, and they were not pleasant. They didn't, like, you could tell that a lot of them were in fear, but that they didn't act in a decisive way or made me feel safe. It was really troublesome,
Well, it wasn't that long ago they were carting, right? Pulling black and brown men over and taking, and they still have their information. They have all their data. They can't get the data back. So, I mean, I don't know. I remember in the 90s after Rodney King, it came out that the police chief, the Toronto police chief, was modeling themselves after the LA police. Like they were getting, they were, I don't know if they still are, but at that time, that was a big deal that they were,
In the mid-2000s, there was a spot at which I was like, the cops have killed more people than we've had murders.
Mhm.
I might have been even exaggerating myself, but they were shooting somebody like once a week,
Yeah.
and then they're unarmed, and there was no real excuse. Like when someone doesn't have a weapon and you've shot them, how the fuck that's the most inexcusable thing. Like, I thought they had a gun, like,
And
but
cops,
he didn't.
and the police job is like not even the top 10 most dangerous jobs. Pizza delivery is more dangerous than cops.
And window washers.
Yeah, are more dangerous jobs.
So maybe
So
that's
Especially when the police kill the odd pizza delivery guy, it just increases the risk.
I wanted to say this thing about, like, yeah, you know, in Canada, in Toronto, you know, we tend to we don't bring it up as much, like the violence that goes on and the racism, and I think it has a lot to do with the media. You know, it's like our media is you know, bombarded by America. We don't invest in telling our stories, our historical stories. So sometimes it's like, oh yeah, there's only racism going on in the States. Look at what's going on there. It was like that post that you sent me, Gavin, where, you know, was it Sandy Hudson?
Yes.
She said, she was like, you know, the CBC needs more Black producers. And, you know, it's like she wanted to bring up like racism in Canada, and it was like, no, let's look at the United States. Mm-hmm. And it's easy for us, it's lazy and cheap for us to keep doing that when we need to look at ourselves and all of the racism that goes on. Yeah, you know what it is? It's different. In the United States, it's more violent and it's more entrenched in the system, especially because it's an empire. So not only are they murdering Black people in the United States, but, you know, they lure them, they seduce them to go into the military. You know, they prey on them in small towns, like especially Black men, and they send them off to die for this fucking country who enslaves them. So it's like there's multiple levels of this. Canada, you know, we're not an empire, and this is the problem we face too, is that we're beside this empire and we're nowhere near it. So to compare us is problematic at times, but in no way should exempt us from the racism, especially our Indigenous people and our Black and brown people. Like, it's time we fucking talk about it and talk about it lots.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little hard for us to know we have a racism problem when we live next door to the Michael Jordan of racism.
Well, Monty,
it's also, like hard for us to notice.
Yeah. Well, another thing that Canada has been actually notoriously bad at, and this country's shit at collecting race-based statistics, right? The United States, it's on every form, it's on everything you have to do. So in a lot of ways, the reason we've been able to turn a blind eye to thing, or what it's at least propped up turning a blind eye to thing, is the fact that we don't even fucking count it. We don't look at it and count it and gather statistics on it. It's
quiet.
Yeah, and it's taken a lot of different journalists and stuff, like literally digging through police records, phoning people, asking them what their ethnic background, to cobble together statistics about who police are killing.
It's also there's not a lot of journalists of color. There's a lot of articles about journalists they don't want to hear my stories. I read a blog by a guy who was saying when he went to the States, he realized he was a good journalist. And when he was in Canada, he couldn't get any work. I've read, so these stories aren't being covered either because there's no one in that community to cover that story.
That sounds like comedians.
Yeah.
And on that note, we're gonna flip. Yeah, this is what happens a lot in this country. But now we're gonna flip it over to our next.
Hey, guess what? It's been 10 minutes. It's time for you to change the subject, ain't it?
I like that one. That's a new original tune. I think it's a yes for me.
Yeah, it's now time for Monty Scott.
Oh, it's time for me. All right. Well, I mean, just talking about the story of the week, but as Gavin said, the story of, you know, our lives is these protests and in the United States and Canada. But I guess I wanted to get everybody's thoughts and get everyone talking about numerous things. Like one topic about it is, do you think there's going to be real change, because my whole life, from Rodney King to all the problems that happened over I Can't Breathe, so many different times this has happened, and it doesn't seem to make any there's never any change made. Here we are now. Rodney King was 25 years ago, and everything that happened prior to that, before they were filming things. I think Rodney King was the first time somebody found a video camera, for Christ's sake. And so this has happened the whole way through. Do you think there'll be any effective change to it now that everyone has stood up and said this is just enough? And beyond that, in Canada, what kind of changes do you think will be made in Canada? And I wanted to bring up, this will probably very much adversely affect the COVID situation, particularly in the United States. Obviously, Black and brown populations have been affected a lot, and many of the protesters are Black and brown. And that whole community, it's going to be a huge case of spreading COVID. So I guess what impact do you think we'll have there? And even though it was in... I like the spirit of having protests in Canada, but depending on how much that affects the COVID situation, do you feel it's worth it for protesting in Canada particularly?
Well, your option is getting sick or continued death. So I don't know. I'd go with getting sick. I'd take that one. So I don't mind. Also, most of those people in that community in the States, especially, that are overly represented in COVID, are Black people, because they're on the front lines. They're the underclass, and that's what they're fighting, being the underclass, the permanent underclass. So I mean, they got nothing to lose. Things are
I definitely
changing.
think the United States, I think the United States, no question, it's worth doing. But we'll see what the impact is.
Yeah, but this oppression and having Black skin and brown skin is kind of like a tag of underclass around the world. Like that's right around the world. So to have people around the world doing the same, this is not unique to America. This is all over. So I mean, I can see where people are protesting in Canada as well. There's a definite frustration. It's just anger right now.
And I think what's different from what 25 years ago with Rodney King is phones. And, we're seeing it way, way more. You can't even stop it this time. It has to stick even a little bit longer than anything else has, because it just feels different this time. I don't know how this can go away.
Well, I think it's also and the presence of social media, because now we're able to see things, or we're able to look at some people who are doing some kind of independent journalism, or I have seen more things and video clip comparisons and different things and that I was just it's just a lot more information, a lot more quickly spreading, and then people being able to very quickly disseminate it to our friends. We can all see something on the news, and then we're on a video call that night. Back in '94, I was taking a phone off the wall.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot more back and forth discussion on it, easy discussion about it.
Fast, too, the speed of the communication.
Yeah.
And for Canada protests, I'm like, well, it's happening. And racism in Canada and Toronto, it doesn't get talked about. This seems like the most yes, absolutely 100% right now. And I mean, I'm also at least we have some semblance of a healthcare system here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That makes it a little less, by degrees, but tiny bit less risky than in some other places. Maybe why wouldn't you capture the speed, and why doesn't Regis Korchinski-Paquette fall? It is at the level of a George Floyd. The investigation needs to be there. People need to be held accountable.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, when you look at the genocide to our Indigenous people, I mean, this is serious. This is that's a discussion that we often don't, we hide behind it. And it's
it starts, but it doesn't finish.
Yeah.
No, there was a video today I posted on Facebook of an RCMP hitting in was it in an Inuk man? You saw that, and then 4 police officers descended on this guy. I don't know what they did to him, but he was on the ground, and so whoever was shooting the video was like, what are you doing? It was like, it was so, and somebody's weeping. I think it was the guy. It was like so awful to watch. And, anyways, it's just that I think that we need to have those conversations.
Yeah. And that shit happens here. Regis was an Afro-Indigenous woman.
I know, that's crazy.
Right? And, Black Lives Matter Toronto and different groups in Black Lives Matter groups they've done so much stuff following maltreatment of refugees and stuff who even come in the detention centers and stuff that are like sites around there that different people who were attempting to cross the border there. Because remember when there were all the shutdowns at the airport and stuff, and Trump was like, we're not going to let people come in from Muslim countries.
Yeah.
There was actually a lot of border crossings into Canada during that time. Yeah. And then there was following the maltreatment of those people when different officers would pick them up and go to detention centers and stuff in Canada. Right?
You know what I think is different about this one too is Trump's reaction, like hiding, is like, that's such a, like how Sandra said, French Revolution, eat the rich kind of deal. Yeah. Like that's like him going and tear gassing the crowd and stuff. People are scared.
Yeah.
I think for the first time, people on the ground understand their numbers. They outnumber everybody. And it's like, and you could feel that there's going to be a change in that sense. The president hiding, that's huge. That's major.
Yeah, and it's in our hearts now. It's like the protests were was like a cry. Like we've been crying for centuries of this treatment. It's like the ancestors are crying. The people, all of us are like, no, this is not what we keep doing. We can't, you know what I mean? And that leads us, I think, is it
because I'm gonna talk about protests too. So I'm gonna just follow the thing here. Because I do think it's different, and the reason why I think this time is different is because the movement is from the people. Like people are on the streets. There's no party involved. There's no organization. There's not a center. It's just people. And I know that because last Sunday we had a manifestation. Not a parade, I don't know how to say that, but in Brazil, in one of the main avenues in Sao Paulo. So the hooligans, so the guys who love soccer, so they have this group, they are like a community, right? So they were fed up and they marched through the avenue like chanting, democracy, democracy, just showing to the fascists like that there's gonna be confrontation. Mm-hmm. And some of the neo-Nazi guys that are Bolsonaro supporters there, they were there and they got punched and they got fucked. This Sunday the hooligans are gonna do another one, and Bolsonaro already told his people to not go because the hooligans, I don't know if you ever heard of I don't know how guys are you in the soccer world, but the hooligans it's huge.
Yeah.
And some of them are violent, and the Brazilians are one of the most violent of them, and so they in a way it was such a relief to see like those fucking Nazis like really afraid, because I would love to show you the video, but I couldn't download it because I thought that there's this beautiful video like they chanting and marching, and I just see like that this time the people are on the street, like there's no political affiliation or anything, there's just like people like enough, like we have to change the system.
Yeah.
And I do think that it is, I do think that the Black movement will be like, I think this is going to be, the Black movement is going to end this, because I think slavery was the basis of all of this economy that we have now. all of this, the basis is slavery. So it has, like, I think it's very symbolic that it is the Black movement that is on the streets now, right?
Yeah.
I agree that it's no coincidence that these things are both boiling over at the same time, for sure.
Yeah, well, I mean, as much as a white person suffering, I think around the world, but in the States, Black people are suffering 3 times the amount.
Oh,
So it's like, it's always 3 times the amount. So they like I said, they're a permanent underclass. But I think also a lot of Americans, like if you look at the voting polls, a lot of Americans wanted policies that Bernie Sanders had. And I think there's a frustration in that. I mean, there's real feudalism in the States. Like you're tied to your job based on your health care.
Absolutely.
You can't leave it.
It's been 10 minutes, nobody loves me. It's been 10 minutes, somebody love me. Please change the subject right now.
We love you.
Yeah.
We love you a lot.
It's dance party, right?
It is total dance party time, man. That's why I'm up in this bitch. And we're gonna do it. And here it is. Yeah. She doesn't want to so. Had a man, she didn't like so. Haven't let it bang, this girl is so long. I've been keeping what you bring to the table. Working hard, girl, everything. Oh. Put your phone down. Like you and you sure know what it's all right.
And it's all right.
I'm out. And I'm out.
We like to break it up with
you have to. You'll lose your mind. You'll be angry the whole time. You got to break it up.
So we're gonna throw it to Phil. Phil, you're the last, or right, Joe?
Phil.
Oh, protests in Brazil. Oh,
Yeah, this is a picture of the protest, I think.
right.
I was just gonna add. Oh, sorry.
I started talking about that already. I already did the presentation and everything.
Yeah, I
got my Brazil. It's over.
I got a little confused there, but I think that it's literally the overthrow of this corporate fascism now, but this capitalist economy that places value and on everything. It's like this article that I read about the relationship between capital and labor, and how it was an article about poverty in the United States, and how capital says to labor, this is the value I'm going to place on you, the minimum value, which is the minimum wage, so that you don't starve to death. And then labor says, but we're the only value, right? And then capitalism goes on as capital says, when they give you a job or a gig in comedy, they make it appear like it's an act of benevolence. Mm-hmm. When it's like, motherfucker, without us, you don't have this country. You don't have, in comedy, you don't have, a show or a recording or whatever. And this is where we're at. It's like that system just, it flourished for a very few number of people and destroyed the bodies.
Call on line 1.
I know. It's like, I thought I turned this shit out. I thought I put airplane mode. It's always my parents too. It's like, they know I'm in the middle of this fucking thing.
They sense it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think what's different now is that the earth is in the conversation. It's like Mother Earth has had it. It's like no more, we've done a lot of harm to our mother, to the people, and to the earth, and it's time that we stop and we rearrange the system. It's like that Green New Deal. The way the Green New Deal is, constructed, it would end a lot of this inequality. Because until we shed this old system, everything will always appear as a token. You know what I mean? And this is why we're all fighting against each other, because we're like, I want this piece and I want that piece because of this. It's like, okay, this doesn't get us anywhere, because we're all like, we congratulate ourselves, or the people like, hey, look, now you have your own show, or now you're being represented. It's like, represented? We're supposed to all be there. You know what I mean? What's the representation? You know what I mean? When it's like white people are they're the ones that give out the representation. They're the handers out of the representation.
And it's also like, I'm not to use American politics again, but it's like a shift between Obama and Trump. Whereas Obama, it seemed like it was a real material change when he was elected, but then what we got was neoliberalism. What we got was just the illusion of blackness going into a place of power. It wasn't happening. And now we have Trump, and now I think everyone's like, I want real change. I want something that's structural. I want real change. I think that's what we're seeing.
Yeah.
I think we're seeing that.
Yeah.
And yeah.
If they can hang on to
hope
actually
so.
having a goddamn election.
Yeah.
Right, because it seems like
It's not going to happen.
like I guess I just always was feeling like these would be fights about, I don't know what to say, like, I guess I just never thought actual democracy would fall apart in my lifetime.
Oh, I did.
Oh, I was hoping for it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
fingers
I'm
crossed.
with those
Yeah.
two.
Fingers
But
crossed.
is America a democratic system? Like my mom, like Monty, my mom's from Guyana. Monty, your parents were Guyana. America went into our country. We had a socialist government. They
Yeah.
went into our country. They did a coup on our government and put in place a representation for 20-something years who killed a whole bunch of socialists and stuff. I mean, America's never been.
They always go
Yeah,
on
you're
like
100% right.
their
I don't know
God's
what the
gift to
fuck I was talking
democracy.
about.
How many democracies have they stopped?
Right. And they sell
yeah,
drugs
you're
to their
right.
own people.
I mean, right after you say that, then the next thing that comes to my mind is Grenada.
Yeah.
Right, and that was under Reagan as well, and all the dictators that I've. Yeah, you're right.
Iran
on that one.
Iran in the 60s. Iran in the 60s was a democratic society.
Yeah.
Oil barons wanted control, and another coup, and now they have the government that they have because of that.
How many people are they
So I guess
bombing
it's the fight
right
for
now?
democracy right now.
Yeah.
How many people are they, like, it goes back to, I think it was our first or second episode where I talked about the deep state and how this deep state, these deep actors, right, are maneuvering all of this, because it's like on the one hand you have, the United States is democracy, it's a beacon of freedom, it's the best country in the world, which I can't. Phil and I always talk about how we can't stand, even when celebrities say that. But
I'm
it's
with
like,
you.
but then you look at, there's this deep state that actually is running everything, because the two don't come together. So it's like, if you are an empire, how can you say that you're a democracy?
Mm.
Don't work that way.
It's double speak.
Yeah.
That's
And
on
that note, we're going to move to our last topic with Phil Luzi.
I just called to say it's been 10 minutes, and I need you to change the subject right now.
Oh, yeah.
Now, no, yes, die. This time I bright. Okay.
No chocolate.
I mean, there's so much to talk about, but here's the thing. This guy literally looked into the camera. I'm like, is our prime minister having a stroke right now? And he's just staring at the camera when he's asked about what he thinks about what his opinions are about the riots and the anti-racist movement going on in the States and how Trump is handling it. And he literally just stared into the camera for 21 seconds. And he got criticized for it, but also he got praised for it. And just personally, I think it's great to see a person who's leading a country who's not afraid to think on camera, because he's doing live shit all the time and a lot is going on. And I'm just watching this guy think, is how do I answer this question without calling that president a psychotic piece of human poison on television? And I guess my question is, what do you guys think? I mean, I feel like it's okay for a leader to think in front of his people. They don't always have to have that fast, quick tweeted answer, right?
Very aggressive coming from a Canadian.
Well, yeah, and the aggressiveness was just not talking.
Exactly.
I think,
my absolute favorite thing about that, Phil, was that after that 21-second pause, he started off by saying, "We look on in horror." That was his first sentence.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think you have to be careful. I mean, our last year we sold off our shares of our Canadian pension plan bought shares in the American prison system. So we just sold those.
Really?
Yeah, we just sold them out. I just reading the article in July 2019. So
Wow.
I mean, yeah, I mean, he's a piece of shit. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm an NDP, so I'm like,
Yeah,
like Justin
Jagmeet all
Trudeau.
the way.
yeah.
Although, in fairness, Gavin, you can't argue Trudeau wasn't involved in the buying of the shares, I don't think, in the prison system.
Yeah, but I mean, he's also involved with the pipeline. He's also involved with he's not. He's okay with it, and to me, that's just as bad.
I don't know if he is. I see. I've been to Ottawa several times now and met a lot of people. I haven't met him yet. I mean, although I met him years ago at a party. But I think that, sometimes, the media just often highlights all the bad stuff. And from everything that I'm seeing, it's like this Liberal government in particular has done a lot of really incredible things. How progressive they are on. I know, Candice, you're shaking your head, but like there's stuff that they
wait
do.
for you to finish.
Yeah.
There's stuff that they do that doesn't make the media. And there's multiple initiatives, especially when it comes to LGBTQ rights around the world and what they're doing in entertainment. Like there's a lot of really great stuff. I'm not defending one party over another because I think that there's, I'm not a conservative by any means at all. But I'm just saying that I think that, it's not as cut and dry as we think often. That's all. I'm not defending him because I, for a long time, thought he was a piece of shit. But I think like in terms of what what's been happening right now, it's like we do live in a socialist country. Our prime minister has been coming out, giving money to people and coming out logically and talking about what's happening versus
Because of the NDP.
Yeah,
That's
well,
the point,
sure,
right?
But that's what makes the government. But yeah, like I'm a lefty. You know what I mean? That's why we have soft lefts. But that's all. That's all I'm saying. I don't want to say like you have to like Justin Trudeau. But what I'm saying is that there's a lot of great things that the government does that never ever makes the media every day, and it's always just the negative shit. But
I mean, if your point is that there are people who in their hearts are working hard and trying their best, I'll give you that. But
more than that.
they have a saying about the
It's more
road to hell, Sandra, and how it is
Yeah.
paved with good
But
intentions.
it's more than that.
Well, hey, look, and I've been to Ottawa too. I've been in those, rooms too, right? So I feel you, but let's not kid ourselves. We shouldn't
I am
congratulate him
I
for
didn't.
being. I guess what I was just trying to like cutely say is like, I guess he's not the worst.
Yeah,
but I don't think he should be congratulated for being a smaller turd than other turds.
Yeah.
I'll go along
I
with
don't
that,
think he's
although
a
the
turd,
road to hell,
personally.
good intentions
he's
is
a
better
bad
than
guy.
bad intentions.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
I don't think he's
I don't think he's a
evil.
bad guy.
I'm not trying to get across that I think he's evil.
I'm grateful for our government at this time in history. I know that there can be improvements, but the way they're managing this state of the world is okay. I think we're doing better than most countries, and that's my.
And we're
that's my
safe.
personal
Like,
opinion.
think about it. Like, it's not Brazil. It's not the United States. It's like the United States gave people a one-time $1,200 payment. And then that's why they're going back to work. They're fucking hungry and they're mad and they're on the street. Our government knew that was smart. It was smart of them because if they didn't do what they did, we would have been doing the same thing.
But we can't compare ourselves to the States. I mean, like that's the lowest of the low.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
We're better
No,
than
for
them.
sure. I honestly am not trying to.
But we do it all the time in entertainment. Then they're the highest of the high. So like, where do we,
Well, we do it with healthcare a lot, where I don't know how we're like, well, we're doing better than the Americans. I'm like, well, that's not what you should be shooting for,
That's what I mean.
healthcare wise.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, even our money is measured against Americans. Every country is measured against that country.
It's a superpower.
Yeah,
It
it's
is
a
a superpower.
superpower.
Yeah.
In fairness, it's only measured against them because you might change your money into American. You can measure it against the peso if you want.
But everything is that's a default. I'm just saying, USD is a default.
yeah.
Yeah,
Around the
totally. They
world.
are the empire.
Yeah.
And it's ending. That's the glorious part of all of this is that it's ending. And I think, yeah, Canada has so much to do, but also, the way that to me, a border or a country is just a way for rich men and rich white men and the Queen the Queen to guarantee them income. That's their guaranteed income. You know what I mean? And those borders are slowly starting to evaporate. The new government is going to be us, me and you. Like, you're like, hey, you know what? We got to fucking go and we got to try and make change. Not leave it up to Justin Trudeau.
I'm putting my money on China. I think they're going to be the
I'm
new
putting my money on
government.
Jeff Bezos.
Get out of here.
I'm putting my money's on Jeff Bezos.
Yeah,
We're all
Bezos.
going to be...
That is the interesting thing. As the United States, obviously none of us are particularly a fan of the United States.
Please change the subject to the end. Do, do, do.
This is the second time Monty's got cut off. It's not honestly Monty. What were you saying? And then we're going to throw it to question period. What were you saying, Mons?
I was just saying it's going to be interesting because obviously we're critical of the United States, but the truth is, if the more they're diminished, the more interesting Canada's role is going to be to figure out. Now we have to see: are we sidling up to Germany? Because we have a lot of water and resources, and not a lot of power.
Mhm.
So we have to negotiate our way through the world. And now with the United States faltering, how are we going to negotiate our way through where you have Russia and China going like they could happily annex us at any point, either of those
right
countries.
between the two of them.
Yeah.
Right.
True or not, but I heard that Canada has a very strong army, and because Canada sent soldiers to a lot of wars, they have a trained army and it's very strong. I've heard that before. I don't know if that's true.
We just don't brag about it, guys. We just don't brag about it.
Carol,
I do.
I think you're a little right.
I do.
Yeah.
Join the army. Join the
Yeah,
Armies are
military.
awesome.
A grower, not a shower.
Exactly. We're like, yeah, come on, if you want.
Do we have any questions? Do we have any questions from our viewers?
No question.
Oh,
No,
then
not
why
right
did we
now.
Then why did we go to question period?
I have a question though, guys. What is enough with the other 3 cops? What is enough?
Fucking first degree murder.
Exactly. Okay.
Yeah.
Fucking life imprisonment. Go fuck
They
yourself.
stood there. They stood there and watched, like, no problem.
What?
They guarded.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
guarded. Did you hear Hassan Minhaj's monologue today? Or
No.
what?
Hassan Minhaj? His?
Yeah, he attacked. He called out his own people, and the store owner who called the cops in the first place, and one of the cops who was standing guard was POC, and just about how it's not just white people who are being held accountable right now.
Anti-blackness.
Yeah.
There you go. Cops are cops. Cops that's a whole race of themselves.
Yeah.
That's
Yes,
a plug.
yeah,
They're a
that's true.
gang. Yeah.
But
Yes.
in those 3 of those officers participated in murdering that guy.
Absolutely.
One guy was looking on. The 3 of them did.
Yep. They're all involved.
Did you hear
Yeah,
now that they're
yeah.
saying that he tested positive, George Floyd tested positive for COVID?
Yeah, I
And
heard
so-
that.
And so some people are like, oh, maybe he died of COVID. Yeah, because no, he died of COVID because you were choking the motherfucking guy. Like, are you? I was like,
Sandra.
what's that?
I was gonna say some people. Those are called racist. Those
Yeah,
are,
Yeah,
That's what they are.
exactly.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
That's
Who
some
is
people.
saying this?
Can you believe that?
I hate the people trying to disprove everything. I'm like,
Oh my
fuck
gosh.
off.
Well, yeah, that's insanity.
Yeah, it's just like,
It's like you
white
throw a guy out the window
supremacy.
and you're like,
Yeah.
maybe it was COVID.
Yeah, that's
or
yeah, the guy-
Antifa. Antifa's looting and Antifa is bad.
We have a question, guys. Do you think Trump will try and cancel the election and seize power for another 4 years? From Andrew.
Yes.
Hey, Andrew.
And yes,
Oh, it's right here.
Yeah.
I think
100%.
he's creating the instability, like the sightings that people are seeing of the bricks that people are finding in the street, that these lootings, because that's what it felt like. I'm like,
Police escorted bricks, slabs of bricks being escorted by police to different locations across the city. Yeah,
so
He want to win again. I think he wants to win.
of course.
this is what I mean. It's no democracy. The easiest way for a president to win an election in the United States is when you are a sitting president. The way that they manipulate everything. I mean, George Bush did it. George W. Bush did it. And the way what I also think too. Yeah, like they put these bricks in the street. They create the distraction because who knows what the fuck they're up to right now. And
Hey, listen, you got to give them credit. If there's a protest, you bring the people complimentary bricks. That's amazing.
To
I'm like,
to
you guys
get
are
rid of
party
us.
favor.
Both
Yeah.
parties are paid by the same people, so I mean,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter who wins.
Word.
It's just one
Yeah.
is better on
Wow.
camera than the other.
Yeah, exactly.
You're
I don't know.
100%
Gavin,
right.
you see this presidency. I think it matters a little bit who wins.
I agree with you, Monty, but what I'm saying is like it's like, oh, look how bad it is. Let's get back to what it was when no one had money.
Yeah.
It's like,
No,
let's get back to. I agree with you. I think he has to leave, but at the same time, I'm like, the
But
options
Joe
are.
Biden,
Yeah.
Joe Biden, like, to me, when Bernie Sanders stepped down in that awkward, weird fucking video between him and Biden, I was like,
Yeah.
that's when people should have been in the streets. You know
Yeah,
what I mean? It's like Leslie Jones was on. She did an Instagram thing, and it was amazing. She was like, "Look," she goes, "I'm 52, but when I was 22, I participated in the LA riots." She was like, "Yeah, man, fuck this up and burn shit down." And then she was like, how long it took for LA to get back. And so she's telling people, "Don't be violent, vote." But that's where I was like, "Vote for who?"
yeah.
Like,
Well, I mean,
vote for who?
my sister lives in the States, and I was like, "Oh, Bernie, Bernie, Bernie." She's like, "Gavin, you don't understand these people.
No, they'll
It's
never
not
do
going to
it.
be a woman. It's not going to be a person of color. It's going to be an old white guy. You have to vote Biden. It has to be conservative. I say conservative. He's our conservative. Down there, he's a lefty.
Totally, yeah.
And it's Biden's the safest choice for them.
Exactly. And he scares the shit out of me. He
Yeah.
looks like, I don't know.
Yep.
It's safe, but it
Thumbs
means
up.
it's safe, but it means he's not going to win.
Yeah, but you're
That's
talking
the
about
point.
Americans. They're
I
politically
think
illiterate.
he'll win.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I agree, Gavin. Like, yeah, they're just. It's going to be an old white guy with the same policies as the. As
You're
the
just
other two
going to
parties.
send the message in a prettier envelope.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's it.
We did.
We just had a comment up.
Very different. Very soon.
What's that?
That's impossible riots happening this weekend. Oh, here's the thing. Well, I don't know if this is what Mark means. I know who that is. That's Mark. Is there? I've seen some conflicting reports of different rallies and stuff happening, but it's also the disinformation, like this idea that there are different white supremacist organizations putting up fake rallies to try to draw people downtown or to draw destruction. And there's been talk, I think, of Black Bloc coming into Toronto from Montreal to stir shit up. And they're warning people not to go downtown. Has anyone heard about any of this? I literally just heard about some of
This is
it
brand news to
today.
me, but I could tell you if I was participating in a riot and it was for the Black Lives Matter movement, then I would check with my chapter of Black Lives Matter before I went to a riot. You know,
Yeah.
and they would absolutely know the answer to that. That's disgusting, and I'm sure it's happening across the United States, because there are a lot of people who.
Yeah, Not Another
Aren't
Black
smart.
Life, which is the organization. They're on Instagram right now. They're for Regis Paquette. They've just posted, "We have nothing to do with this. This is not related to us. We've checked with Black Lives Matter Toronto. We are not, or no one is sanctioning this."
Mm-hmm.
No.
So
Yeah, I saw that now. But yeah.
One thing I'll say about Toronto is that it's not a very riotous place. So I doubt there'll be a riot.
Well, I was there for G20, man.
Yeah, G20, man.
That went down.
Oh man, I face to face with a line of riot cops. I was this close, and then I was like, and they were coming at me, and I'm like, fuck it, I'm going for it. And then it was raining, and I moved away because I'm like,
we must have been there on the same time.
I'm sure.
On
But then I
Queen
was like,
Street,
if
yeah.
I get hurt, my mom's gonna be upset. That's what made me move away. You know what I mean? But guys, that wraps.
Well, I mean, Toronto can have a riot, but it's you really got to give it a straight reason. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, it's like a
I don't see
riot.
any delayed riot happening
Yeah.
in Toronto.
Yeah.
Personally,
a quiet riot.
yeah.
But guys, that's our show. We're just here just a little bit after 8:00. I want to thank our guest panelist Gavin for
Thanks
coming
for
on the
having
show
me.
tonight.
Yeah, great to
This
have
is
you
fun.
guys.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thanks,
can't
guys.
wait. Hope to have you back real soon.
Yeah, it was good times.
Yeah, it was really, really great. As a lot of you know, I mean, comedy in most of the world is shut down. So this is an amazing place for us to get together every week and see each other, because we do shows with each other all the time and we really miss it. But this is a really great opportunity to be with people we love and to get to talk about stuff. I want to thank your amazing panelists, Phil Luzi, Zoccoli, Candice Gregoris, Monty Scott. We're going to go around and just do some shout outs, but Please like us, follow us, and shout outs to the Bail Fund if you want to donate. The Bail Fund, there's a bunch that Candice wants to say right now. Yeah.
Well, I just want to say, like, my handle at the bottom, Candice Gregoris. If you go to the link in my bio there, it's the fundraiser GoFundMe for Regis's family that her sister started. So you can donate there, give to Regis's family.
Yeah. Who else? Any shout outs? Let's go around the room, please. Just
Justice for Regis is going down the bottom right now.
Amazing. Thanks, Candice. So let's go to the rest of the panel and just shout out, just do your shout outs, and then we'll wrap it up and we'll be done. Phil?
No, go ahead.
Phil, what do you have?
So new episodes of Legendary is on HBO Max. I highly recommend. That is like my dream. So watch that show. It's so hilarious.
Amazing. Carol.
Hey guys, just follow me on Instagram. It's Zoccoli Carol, like here, and keep safe and keep alive.
Gavin?
Oh yeah, you can check out my podcast Uncolonized. It's on the Chonilla Network, which is it's like a Black podcast network that I'm part of. Yeah.
Candice did you guys, we follow Candice at Candice Gregoris. Monty?
Well, you can check out the Impetus of Everything, my podcast with Pat Bircher, and also just a shout out to all of the bail funds, or anybody want to have a little extra cash and give to.
Yeah.
These protests have got to be the most important thing that's happened in most of our lifetimes, and the most genuine and necessary change that there could be. So. Anything along the lines of helping facilitate this change would be huge.
Yes, and this is part of the reason why we're even doing this show. Also, special shout out to the Mobs Press and Joanne Britton, who you've seen in our interstitial.
Yeah.
Our producer, our queen. We're so lucky to have you. And that's our episode tonight. We're here every Thursday at 7 p.m. live, and all our episodes are on YouTube and on our Facebook page. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful weekend.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
See you. Cheers.
Bye.